Welcome back to another episode of the Property Management Show, where we deep dive into the world of property management, marketing, and entrepreneurship. Your hosts are Marie Tepman and Brittany Jones from Fourandhalf Marketing Agency. Since 2012, we have helped hundreds of property managers like you grow their business by using marketing strategies that attract owner leads. Whether you need help with your website, SEO, online reputation, paid advertising, blog or video content, social media, you name it, we can help you. Visit our website, fourandhalf.com, to learn more and get started on growth today. That's fourandhalf.com. So we invited Jessica Schirmeister and Jason Zimmerman from Trend Property Management on our podcast to talk about the concept of, mid-term rentals or furnished rentals. And it turned out to be a really fruitful, but also long conversation. So we're having to split it into two parts. So this is part one of our conversation where we talk about kind of the basics of mid-term rentals, furnished rentals. And then part two will go more deep into the workings and the financial aspect as a property management company managing furnished rentals. Without further ado, here is our interview. Today, we are interviewing Jessica Schirmeister and Jason Zimmerman from Trend Property Management in Texas. Welcome to the show, both of you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
I'm so excited about our discussion today because we were hoping you could enlighten us and our audience about this lesser known flavor of property management that is mid-term rental. So not quite short-term, not quite long-term. So can we start by maybe helping us understand what makes a rental mid-term?
Yeah, so I think the term mid-term is just something that is over a month, but it's kind of like a month to a year. So people think of short-term rentals and it's probably less than 30 days. And then, long-term rentals are a year and above. So mid-term is just kind of that mid-mark.
And so how have you seen the role of mid-term rentals kind of evolve in the rental market over the recent years?
Yeah, I can take that one. So we started doing furnished home rentals about 8 years ago. And then we started with a traditional Airbnb model, looking for, booking every weekend and, maybe adding extra beds in there, seeing how many people you could get in. And then a few things sort of lined up that sort of pushed us into this midterm model. One was we realized after a couple of years, the wear and tear that puts on a property is just sort of erodes that extra income that you're making in the first couple of years, because the residential home just isn't designed to be used, everything from the plumbing and the HVAC and all that to have big groups and all that. So that we're kind of getting away from that. And then we started to see some cities pop up with, restrictions on the, going to a 30-night minimum stay or minimum lease term for any sort of rental. So we had some furnished houses and I thought, well, first is nobody's going to book for a month. And then all of a sudden, once we cleared up the calendars and stopped taking the shorter ones, we did start to get those month and longer stays, and quickly realized that not only is it simpler, but it's also more profitable, minimizing vacancy and significantly minimizing wear and tear on the house. So while you're maybe not making as much money every month, you're also not spending as much replacing all the stuff that the weekend crowds would leave damaged.
The parties.
So, the parties, yeah. And exactly. And that's another thing, that those longer stays just really cut down parties, any sort of misuse, the kinds of things that led to cities and homeowners associations passing restrictions are the things that happen on the weekend stays, not the 2-month stay. I'm here for work. That's just not the kind of tenant you're going to have issues from.
I can imagine the neighbors
that's sort of how
would
we
like that more
transition.
too.
Absolutely. Definitely leads to better neighbor relationships. You're just not going to get there's 9 cars and there's 18 people in the pool and what's going on over there every
Loud
weekend.
Music at 11 p.m.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. We had some wild stories in the beginning we had a big place and would sleep 18 people. And my neighbor sent me the video, and there was just a person, and every 2 seconds their head would pop up over the 8-foot privacy fence. And so they're like, "Oh, what do you think's going on?" We just saw this head bobbing up, and so he climbed up the fence and put his camera over and saw that they had a mechanical bull, and they were doing mechanical bull riding for a bachelor party. And so all they were seeing was the head just whoop, 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 over the fence. And they're like, so that's the kind of thing that will maybe want you to get away from doing the weekends. So,
So traditionally, when I hear midterm rentals, I tend to think like, travel nurses, because every time that had come up in the past, people would kind of associate that with travel nurses. But, I attended a webinar earlier this year that's like, there's more to midterm rentals and travel nurses. So can you share? More. Yeah, can you share with our audience, like, what are the key demographics that are driving this demand for midterm rentals? So when you started, you didn't even know there was as much demand, right? So, like, what have you learned about, like, what other types of, life circumstances lead people to need midterm rentals?
Yeah, I feel like the whole thing about the traveling nurses has been a pretty big myth so far. I feel like a lot of our client meetings that we have that want to get into this, they want to market just to traveling nurses. And that's not really like a huge demographic that we market to. Of course, we still market to them. But mainly we're seeing, traveling professionals. And then we are seeing just people who need like temporary housing, either because they're going through an insurance claim at their house, or they just moved to Fort Worth and they just don't know where they want to live yet. So we haven't gotten many traveling nurses.
Yeah, in our office, we're in 2 different markets, both the Dallas-Fort Worth and Austin, Texas area, and then also in Rochester, Minnesota. And Rochester is home to Mayo Clinic. It's a town of 125,000 residents that sees 1 million different visitors a year to Mayo. Mayo treats over, I think it was 1.3 million unique patients last year, which is kind of a staggering number if you start to think about, well, how many people are in the town at any given time? It's nearly the population of the city. So about half of the people living there at any time are there for Mayo. So it is an area where you would see, and it's a huge medical community. And even there, at any given time, we've never had more than one traveling nurse tenant. I mean, and I think that market too is really winding down. I think the popularity of that is on the downs. I always feel it's a mistake if you're doing something like a furnished rental, where you're going to be spending $25,000 to $50,000 more, just to get that house furnished. To do that on a short-term strategy, so that you really need to be committed to doing that for 10 or 15 years to recoup those upfront startup costs and have it make sense. So definitely something we see from time to time, but it's such a wide mix of people from, my house burned down and my insurance is going to put me up for somewhere for 14 months while this being rebuilt. That's actually more common in our business than the traveling nurse inquiry. So,
right. And we're seeing like a lot of families and people traveling with their families too. So most of our rentals, they're 3-bedroom, at least 2-bathroom. So you don't see a lot of traveling nurses because typically they travel alone. And usually they only need 1 bedroom. And if they're a traveling nurse, they're probably working all the time. So they're not going to be there that much. So it wouldn't make sense for them to get a 3-bedroom, 2-bath unless their stipend, of course, allowed for that. So yeah, we haven't seen many of those.
That's so interesting. Do you feel like, things that have been happening in the economy or in the global context, like the pandemic or something, contributed to this rise in midterm rental demand, or it's just random?
Yeah, I mean, from our experience, I feel like, ever since COVID did start, so many more people are working from home and have that, that freedom that they can work remotely, which then gives you the freedom that you can really work from anywhere. So I feel like, if you do want to travel on like a Thursday through Friday or whatever, you can go to somewhere where you have family or you just want to sightsee and you can work your normal business hours and then go do whatever you want in a different city. So I do feel like it's growing in that aspect.
Yeah. And I think also once somebody's realized maybe the improvement to lifestyle for longer travel, then they start to see the, it's such a big travel difference between, I'm going to go to a town for a long weekend versus let's go there for 3 weeks. And that airplane ticket costs you the same to get there. There's like your cost per day to travel goes down sort of the longer you stay. And when you can be working, from a house, maybe you work 4 days a week and then you have 3 days a week to go see Texas, can be a little bit more of a, just an experience that I think people are growing to like. On top with, or I guess in addition to that, once you've had the experience for, say, like compare a really nice 3 or 4 bedroom house with your own garage and your own kitchen to an extended stay hotel for 3 weeks, it's really hard to go back to that hotel. I think
absolutely.
It's just, especially when you get into a place, if it's got nice amenities and the beds are comfortable and everything is on par with what you left back at your house, you can stay in some really expensive hotels and still find pretty crappy beds. Like where you start to see those things improve in hotels is in, $200-$300 a night and up hotels, which is, that's translating to $6,000 to $9,000 a month house. Well, you can rent a very nice home for $6,000 to $9,000 a month, significantly nicer, at least in my opinion, than what you'd get in a comparable hotel.
And you get more space. It's interesting you talk about the amenities and kind of like the improvement because, we just came from NARPM National in Atlanta and we, there were 4 of us who rented an Airbnb and the beds were more comfortable than you would get in a hotel. Their couch was so comfortable.
I chatted them and said, "Hey, what brand is this couch? I want one." And they're like, "Well, it's been discontinued, but here's the link to the comparable one."
Yeah, that's what I would ask. Do you have the dupe?
Exactly.
And so I was like, when you said that, I'm like, absolutely, because I've been to decently, expensive hotels and the pillows still aren't the most comfy. And I was surprised that the Airbnb we were in Atlanta was except for the attic that scared the living hell out of me. But the amenities definitely compensated for the attic, Brittany.
Yeah. And it was a great stay. And I was thinking that myself, man, you're selling me on midterm rentals. Maybe I need to get one,
right. And your trip right there, that's a great example of what we get. One of our homes, we recently had a new Pittsburgh Blue is getting built. And that company, when they put it in, they bring in people from corporate for the last 3 or 4 weeks of the construction. And then for the first month, as they're training all the new local staff. So they had 5 people from their corporate office that needed a house for 9 weeks. And when you start to look at, so our homes are probably, the one they rented was maybe 3,500 square foot. It's, probably $700,000 home, a really nice custom home. And in our market, that's that's kind of a high-end home. And compared to 4 separate hotel rooms for that corporation, it was probably a third the price. And so not only is their staff each getting a large private bedroom and this was a 3-car garage, each of their own garage stall, the big giant, custom kitchen, the corporation is spending half or probably less than that than if they'd rented 4 relatively mediocre hotel rooms.
Yeah.
In our market, a $200 a night hotel is not great. It is not some place you'd be excited to stay for 9 weeks for sure. Groups of people with the same company, that's a real big kind of source of our leads.
So, you were talking about amenities, right? For these furnished rentals. And so what kinds of amenities are crucial to midterm rentals versus like short-term? I mean, I guess not a lot of people really do furnished long-term, right? But like what amenities are crucial for midterm?
We do some long-term furnished.
Interesting.
Yeah. But, if you look at short-term rentals, if you go out of state and get something, like in the mountains or in the cities, they're going to cater to the short-term by getting like pool tables in there, cute backdrops for bachelorette parties. Whereas for the midterm, especially in our Rochester area, most amenities, because we kind of cater to a little bit of the Mayo Clinic patients, they're usually coming for surgeries or healthcare. So amenities such as, super comfortable furniture where they can recover after surgery, floor plans that don't have a lot of stairs. So, like those ranch style homes are super important. And then just, things in the home, like comfortable blankets, pillows, just so that they have that like home away from home experience. Whereas down south, a lot of, our people that we cater to is just working, traveling professionals. So people, coming to Fort Worth because Fort Worth is growing rapidly. So people who are traveling for work, they just need a place to come crash. So again, comfortable stuff. And just things that have that home away from home experience and not really attracting the party crowd. And then along with the longer stays, it's pretty much the same thing. So making sure that they have a fully equipped home.
Like enough toilet paper, Brittany.
No. I was stealing Maria's TP.
All of the paper. All of the toilet paper.
Our Airbnb only had one full roll of toilet paper for 4 adults for a week.
No.
And we were rationing the toilet paper.
I felt bad. I didn't want to message them, and we did Instacart like 4 times, and I kept forgetting to get some. But that's what I was going to bring that up, because it's like you think of short terms where they will provide toilet paper, paper towels, shampoo and conditioner is one I'm seeing a lot more now. And then just like kitchen basics like salt, pepper, olive oil or whatever, things like that. Are those kind of like things that you also recommend putting into the midterm? Or is there any overlap there?
Like, are you expected to provide like month-long supply of toilet paper? Like,
right.
No, but like usually, with the basics, we don't typically, do shampoo and conditioner just because people who are staying for that long of time, they're going to want to bring their own stuff.
Right.
Like myself, I'm very particular about the shampoo and conditioner body wash that I use. But we do, have basics like toilet paper, paper towels, dish soap, dish pods, just enough products to get them started. So, you don't have to run to the grocery store for cleaning stuff as soon as you get there. So you're not going to get to the house and be like, oh my gosh, it's 9 p.m. and I still need to go to Target for some toilet paper. Right. So it's just enough to get people started, and then they can go and get whatever else they need.
That makes a lot of sense.
I just want to add something on a comment you made a minute ago, where you said that people don't often rent these for a long period of time. But one thing we've seen recently has definitely been an uptick in year-plus stays. I think that the economics of moving your furniture, along with sort of maybe our market catching up to lots of other parts of the world where it's very common to rent a fully furnished sort of turnkey property. We do see demand for people staying 1 to 2 years, often international travelers who are just more accustomed to that, and they want to show up and they don't want to set up 5 utility accounts. They don't want to figure out who to call for trash, who to do this. They just want to show up and have everything working and on, and just have one bill to pay every month. And I think that sort of level of service is going to continue to be, or that type of product is going to, we'll probably see more demand for. Because it does massively simplify your life if you're not having to manage who's coming to cut your grass, who's coming to sweep the snow if you're in a snow place, or who's all the different utility companies, what's the best deal on the internet, and who wants to call the internet person. And so you can take all of that off the plate for somebody. They'll pay a premium for the rent. And so we market all of our homes simultaneously on the Airbnb, VRBO, TripAdvisor type sites, but also on traditional sites, looking for that, 1 to 2 year tenant, because that's our, ends up being like, that's the most profitable thing to do with a furnished home. And because we're able to, that's sort of our home run. And because we're able to set our prices really high for those long-term stays, because we don't have the pressure to get it rented. So, if you have a traditional rental, you can't say, well, I just want $500 more a month and let's just wait around for 3 months till we find somebody, because you'll get killed up by the vacancy. But here we can fill the vacancy by short-term stays while we're continuing to search for those home run people that they're going to pay a premium for a premium product and stay, for 1 to 2 years. And Jessica and I, we just looked at a rolling 12 on our, we have about 30 furnished homes now that we're either that I own or we're managing, and we're 35% of our revenue was from people on long-term contracts in our furnished homes.
Wow!
So that's that's what we're constantly striving for with our furnished homes, and the financial benefits to the owner on that is so significant. And I didn't really figure this out till we'd done it for 4 or 5 years. But in most markets, turnover cost is really getting out of control. It's by far our biggest obstacle right now in Texas is how do you get a home made ready between tenants for the next, on a reasonable price for the owner. And labor shortages coupled with, rising costs for everything just makes a make ready more expensive. And when you take all of that out, because when you furnish a home and when you're at a really high price point, we haven't had one house come back in bad shape in as long as we've been doing this now, which is close to 10 years. So we just haven't got stuck with that monster make ready that sometimes you get on a normal rental. And you have our cleaning crew in there all the time, keeping the house up. Your asset preservation is so much better when you have it furnished. You don't have people moving their junk in and out. And all of your tenants are people that are paying a premium because you did a premium finish out. The long-term savings is just really justifies that extra expense to get in it. So
yeah, and I do feel like, especially when people are paying a little bit more money for these versus, a longer term rental, they're going to have higher expectations on how the home is and how, like they do work orders and everything. Like we'll constantly, get work orders down to coming to sweep out the garage or changing a light bulb. Whereas, a long-term tenant, there may be like a leak under the sink and they'll let it go for a couple of weeks before they let anyone know. And so there's a huge difference. And I feel like, doing the midterm rentals, there's so much more people that are particular on how the home is, which helps with turnover costs as well.
Okay, we're going to have to stop right here and put a pin on it and save the rest for part 2. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Property Management Show, where we continue our discussion with Jessica and Jason about midterm rentals, aka furnished rentals. As usual, if you have any questions or concerns or suggestions, feel free to send a message to marketing@fourandhalf.com. We love hearing from our audience. And if you are enjoying our show, go ahead and leave us some love by leaving a rating or review on your favorite podcast app. Thank you for tuning in, and see you next time.